2 uppercuts just to build the most meter. Nice. Catches him with the EX Oicho.
A lot better play from Grandmaster B. Chases him down out of the air. Is he going to get a juggle on this?
Oh, nice.
Pretty solid.
Boom. Oh, wow. Daigo's still alive.
Needs more. Can he get the butt slam chip? No.
Oh,
ooh, that crouching medium kick was dangerous.
That could have just been it right there.
Crowd's trying to get little screams going in to convince somebody to do something crazy.
Oh, is that too late? That's too late.
No, quick rise. Got to press the button. It's crouching jab and it's enough.
Hello and welcome to the Absolute Guard podcast.
Yes, welcome. This is episode 40. My name is Benny, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host John. Speaking of 40, that's a milestone that I personally just ended up surpassing as I just turned 41 yesterday.
Hey. I don't know if you have the stream audio tuned in right now, but today is actually a surprise birthday episode for Benny.
I saw it was just playing right now. I was like, oh man.
The theme music is a little different, but well, yeah, congratulations, happy birthday. I just congratulated you on surviving for 41 years, I guess.
yeah, it's been good. Yeah, I just saw the Daigo match right now.
Yeah, so basically in preparation for this show, I have a list of different questions that I wanted to ask you about your fighting game career, both as a player and as a tournament organizer. We're in a really unique spot compared to previous episodes where, we could just have like everyone would have like a biography episode. We call it a biography episode. But for you and I, as the hosts, we have gradually trickled our stories in. So our origin stories are kind of spread out through the entire thing. So I try to like think of some questions of stuff that you haven't shared already on the podcast. And one of those is we talked a little bit about your match with Daigo in a previous episode, but I was curious about like what your general experience was like playing the match that's on the stream right now.
Oh man, that was, to be honest, like going into Evo, right? Like you see your bracket, right? And it's just like, your initial bracket, that's not always a thing, right? That's a rough draft. Like, people get swapped around, people get reseeded or whatever, right? And when I saw that my final bracket was pretty much, Daigo was in there on the other side, or actually on the same side.
Yeah.
And, it's hard not to look at it and be like, you know what? If I win these first 2 matches, I'm going to play Daigo. And then knowing, this was, to put it in context, like at that time, like Daigo was switching to Evil Ryu, right? After Yun, right? And, a lot of people were kind of down on him and just like, he's kind of lost his touch. He hasn't won Evo in the last couple of years. What's he going to bring to the table? So again, that came into my thought process too, was like, if I get to play against him, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be on stream, because at that point, they don't want to put the first round matches on stream. Like, they're going to wait a couple rounds. Then it's going to be like, all right, whoever's playing Daigo at this point, he's going up there.
Wow.
So my mindset was like, I got to win these first 2 matches, right? Like I wasn't trying to look ahead, but I was like, I got to win these first 2 matches. And if I remember correctly, that was the year that the first guy, I think did he get himself DQ'd? Man, I'd have to look back at the bracket.
Was it like an early pool or something?
Well, no, it wasn't even an early pool. Like he came and like I guess he was playing pad and his controller wasn't working, right? And then he's like, "Oh, do I have time to go get my other controller?" And the TO or whatever, the bracket runner was like, "Oh, where's your other controller?" He goes, "Oh, it's at the hotel across the street or whatever. I don't know, whatever hotel we were nearby."
Ooh.
And I'm like, why would you enter the Evo Hall and leave your backup controller in your hotel room? That was my first thought. It was just like, it wasn't even about the fact that I could potentially get a DQ win, because I was just like, whatever.
Yeah.
It was just like, why would you leave your backup controller in a hotel room that's not even, you're not even in the same hotel?
What's the point of even bringing the backup controller on the trip with you, right?
Exactly. So I was like frustrated by, or, I was just kind of like, not frustrated, just more confused about the fact that he would do that. And I don't remember if he ever came back or if he came back later or whatever. But then like I got through that part, and then the second guy, everybody does their kind of research on who's in their pool, right?
Sure.
And the second guy I found out was from like the Pacific Northwest, and being from Alaska, like I'd ask my friends like, "Hey, do you guys know who this guy is?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I think we played him at Northwest Majors. He's a Ken player." And I
Okay.
was like, "Okay, well, I didn't really do research on like him as a player, but it was just like Ken, like I wasn't necessarily too worried about it. It was like something I'm comfortable with. So, but I was more nervous playing that match than I was actually playing Daigo, because it was like, if I don't beat this guy, like I'm never gonna be able to live with myself, right?
Yeah.
If I didn't
'Cause
get the chance to go play Daigo, because like it was like I lost to some dude from Seattle, Washington, or Portland, or wherever he was from, and I missed out on the chance to play Daigo at EVA of all things. So I was more nervous doing that, but I ended up getting through him, and then sure enough, like I see somebody come from the side, and it's like, "Oh, Daigo, go stream," and I'm just like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "Yeah, it's happening," and I was like, "Oh my god!" So we end up going up to the stage, and then um, I think he asked me to play on the P2 side, and I
Oh,
honestly should have fought it, because like I prefer to play on P2, but at the time I was just kind of like, yeah, that's fine, yeah, whatever, you can take whatever.
yeah.
But
You didn't want to play mind games with them out of the gates.
yeah, but I mean, if you watch the match, like yeah, I pretty much got washed. I basically got double perfected other than the one round that I won. But to win that round was like, in the fashion that it is, was pretty hype. So like
Yeah.
it was pretty cool to actually like, be up on the main stage with like tens of thousand people, watching the stream, and the people in live attendance seeing me, and just like, you know, I'm sure everybody was just like, yeah, he's about to just destroy this guy. And just to actually get the round off, I was just like, hey, I took a round off that guy of all people, who was, pretty much been my Street Fighter idol. So that was like the coolest thing that I've done up to that point.
It was in like a really unique fashion how you won that round too, right? Where it was deliberate counterplay against him. He like jumped back in the corner and you did an anti or sumo headbutt or sumo splash rather, and you comboed into
Yeah, yeah.
ultra, which is a really rare combo for Honda players. You don't see that very often at
Yeah,
all.
that's like completely situational, and like part of like my thinking is I had got a back throw on him, and
Mhm.
I don't know if I mistimed it, but I was going for a safe jump setup to see if he was going to Dragon Punch. He didn't do anything, and then I spaced it. Like you play enough, and like I know the spacing perfectly. That I was just like, he's in the corner, I get him to this spot. Like if I hit him with the sumo smash, like that combo is going to work. Like that's a super situational thing. So like when I did it, and like I kind of like got a somewhat of a read, just like he was reacting to certain things I was doing. So I was like, if I do this, he's gonna jump. And when I saw him jump and I landed that, and I was just like, holy crap! I was just like, this is really gonna happen. I mean, I didn't even win off of that. Like he was at like chip damage range, and then he escaped, and I basically won because I think he dropped one of his combos, his FADC combo, and I forgot to tech to get up quicker. And that's
Yeah.
what Ultra David was saying. He's like, "Hey, it doesn't matter who you're playing, you got to tech and get the hell up, because like otherwise, I could have ended up losing the round."
Yeah. Yeah. When you got the jab, I was like, I wonder if that was actually a punish or not.
I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know, but at the end of the day, like I won that round, and then after that, like he pretty much washed me. So I was just like,
Yeah.
it's like it's what it is, man.
How did you feel like after the match, like, shaking the hand and getting up off the stage and whatnot and seeing just how many people were watching you?
I was just relieved. Like I mean, I was just like, part of it was just like, oh man, I just got to play this guy. Like I wasn't thinking about, it's a, I guess it's an easier loss to take than just losing to anybody. So it's
Mhm.
just like, nobody was expecting me to win. Like I pulled off a round, so it's like, I could at least say I did that, if anything.
Yeah. There were a couple like moments where it was like on the stream right now, it was a concern that you were going to get double perfected, but you actually had you made him block a headbutt at least. And then, like, the context of the match, as you said, Daigo was kind of had the washed up impression on the scene right at that point in time. No one had seen him really play Evil Ryu, and everyone was kind of looking for him to come back in decisive fashion, and this was kind of the start of that, I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
cool.
it was yeah, definitely a fun time. I'm glad that there was, the pro photographers around, because there's a really good picture of me and him like at the stream setup that that I found that, to this day it's just like that's like one of my favorite FGC photos that I have. So I'm like, yeah, I
Totally.
got to play this guy.
Nice. I was gonna ask too, like, did you have like a game plan going into fighting Daigo? Like a specific goal you wanted to accomplish, or like obviously you were trying to get to the point where you could play him, and once you got there, like,
Yeah.
what was your game plan going in?
I didn't really have a game plan. I mean, I pretty much got destroyed by the crouching forward more than anything that whole time. Like, I was just like, this is Footsie's on a whole nother level. This guy's just like toying with me. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I've always told people, like, when it comes to playing the more established and the pro players and stuff, right? Like they're just names in the bracket, and like you shouldn't try to get overwhelmed with the fact that you're going to lose to them, or
Mm,
or that you're playing them. Like otherwise, like like I always look at it as kind of like that's kind of like a loser's mentality, right? Like I didn't go in thinking like I was going to lose, but at the same time, like you got to kind of be realistic with yourself. So
yeah.
it's just like I didn't just go in and be like, all right, I'm going to lose this match. It was like, holy shit, I'm about to play Daigo at Evo. Like that's where my mind was.
Got it. It's two opposite ends of the spectrum, right? There's one part where
Yeah.
if you're you give up too quickly because you're like, oh, I'm just here to get his autograph or something. It's
Yeah.
you go in with that loser's mentality, like you're just gonna get washed. But then if you go in with completely unrealistic expectations, like you're gonna be hurting after you get brought back down to earth.
Yeah.
I've seen people get mad. I've seen people get sad. There's a lot of like. You gotta have reasonable expectations, I think, playing somebody like
Yeah.
Daigo.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just one of those things. I think it's just like, I mean, I knew, like, he's at a whole other level of gameplay than I was, right? So it's just
Sure.
like, just to be up there, and then like I said, losing, it was, I didn't really think anything about the loss. It was just, okay, I lost to Daigo, but I was just like, man, this is like a whole nother level of the game that I'm not ready for yet.
Yeah, and sometimes that's exciting, right? You're like, oh man,
Yeah.
there is a whole another level to the game now, and I can just that's more to explore, really.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's like when it comes to, like, professional sports, right? Like there's the basketball team, like typically you only see there's like an NBA team has like 15 people on their roster, right? Typically on like their rotation, you'll see 8 people. The rest of them, they don't really play unless, injuries or something happen, right? And a lot of people will call these guys that are on like the end of the bench, like, a bunch of scrubs, like they can't do anything. And then like they'll run into them at their local gym and they'll get destroyed by them. And they're like, oh, I didn't think you were that good. And I was like, this guy's in the NBA, bro. Like, this is like an exclusive club. Like, he might not look great compared to like the other pros that he's playing against, but he will take you to the cleaners any day of the week, at
Yep.
your local gym if that's what you want to test yourself against.
That's something that I think like for fighting games in particular, like they're designed to make you look cool while you're doing them. And so if you get beat up, if you're on the losing end of it, and someone's like styling on you or just even doing a basic combo on you, like to the layman, it looks like you're getting your ass beat. And in reality, sometimes it's just, these games the rounds end in like 3.5 guesses on average to an optimized player. So it's like, like if you guess wrong 3 times, does that make you like, it gives a really false impression, I think, of someone's skill level.
Yeah.
But you'll notice that on the stream here, we've got a series of different matches throughout your fighting game career playing in the background. I believe the one that's currently on is one from Alaska. And
Yeah,
you're
I was
playing
like
a
looking
Viper
at this
player.
and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you were looking through some stuff for real.
Yeah. I think we've got enough for the entirety of the show. It might loop back around to the Daigo match eventually.
Oh, man.
But I like, so this will all be playing in the background as we go. But a lot of stuff has also happened like in the past week or so regarding 3 out of 5 discourse, just to get into the news a little bit here.
Yeah.
And specifically it was Punk, I believe, who posted saying that Street Fighter 6 is very much a like it's a high damage game, and so maybe it should be 3 out of 5. I think ultimately it's the dude was just thinking out loud, but the FGC kind of like got hold of it. And what's really unique about this particular discussion is it's not really gameplay oriented. It's everyone's got a valid opinion, I think, on 3 out of 5 versus 2 out of 3. So I was curious about like what your stance on that was, Benny.
Well, I mean, as a I've been on both sides of this, right? In terms of a tournament organizer and then also as a player. So like I guess I'll start with kind of with like the TO side. So like from the TO side, like I guess the biggest concern a lot of the times is like worrying about like your attendees, like your local attendees versus viewers. And I think for locals, like maybe years ago it wasn't as big of a deal, right? Because like it's just the people that are there, right? Versus nowadays, like even the smaller locals, people want to see those other scenes. And
Yeah.
so you've got viewers to cater to. So you've got to think about um, a couple things with that because for the locals, or I mean, even the viewers themselves, you got to think about the runtime, right? Like how many people are in attendance? Like, is this going to make my tournament run a lot longer than I expected? Having everybody do 3 out of 5, depending on how many setups I have and all this other stuff, right?
Mhm.
But then you have the other side where um, when it comes to like streaming matches for like the viewers, if you're doing 3 out of 5s, if you're trying to get done in a timely manner, like that means less of those matches are going to get streamed. So it's like, which side of that are you going to choose between, what you're going to show on stream? How much is that gonna how much is that gonna hold up your tournament? If it's like, hey, this is a new game, a lot of people want to see some of these top name players that are here, from our scene,
Yeah.
but how can I balance like holding up the bracket and holding up all this and us having the 3 out of 5.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like even at the local level, it's like, hey, there's somebody that they just made their first top 8, and they don't ordinarily get stream time.
Mm-hmm.
But if that time is being taken by 3 out of 5 for the rest of the bracket, they might not. I don't know. It's just like it's also like less of an opportunity for more players to show up, right, on the
Yeah.
big stream. Makes
Yeah, and
sense.
then it's like the other thing too is like, there's definitely, I mean, it's easy to look at the damage now, right, and think that it's high, but typically at the launch of a game, like damage seems high because for me, like I look at it as like people haven't exactly established like defense or learning how to deal with certain things at the beginning, right?
Sure.
So they might be getting hit by things initially that, maybe a month down the line they'll be like, oh, I know how to deal with this now, versus, oh, this is a cross up or this isn't a cross up, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I would take it a step further and say that games nowadays are balanced around having high damage out of the gates, just because of the games that didn't have high damage, like, and resulted in a lot of time overs. Like those games tended
Mm,
to die pretty quickly. They tended to get
yeah.
poor reputations.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Like you think of like Cross Tekken,
yep,
Marvel vs. Infinite was like that initially too, right? When people were
yeah,
still trying to like figure out how to really maximize damage in that and
yep,
optimize damage. It was like, man, we're just going to timeouts all the time. This is kind of weak.
yep. Particularly coming off of Marvel 3, it was like, when everybody died in one combo, the audience was expecting something like that to happen.
Yeah.
And it just, that it turns into the game is slow or the game is boring. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I think nowadays, like I saw it particularly with Strive, is that the damage was so high to kind of keep it high octane and
Hmm.
prevent those situations from happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when I think of like Marvel Infinite, right? Like there was, combos were long, right?
Yeah.
But eventually people like, they once they get things optimized, like a lot of stuff looks the same, right? Or they're going for the same setups. It's just like, oh, knockdown into this mix up or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And I kind of liken it to, if the damage isn't high enough, I kind of liken it to like kung fu movies. Like American audiences in particular, like they don't like these kind of long drawn out kind of battles that happen. Like they want things that are kind of quick and to the point, right? And cameras are up close, like the dynamic camera angles and stuff like that. And like that's what I think about when I see these like cinematic ultras and supers and stuff, right?
Okay.
Whereas if you watch like a classic kung fu movie, like some of those fights, like they're going like 10 minutes. And some people are just like, man, I can't stomach all this. I don't need to see all this. Like they just want to see what happens and see what, who lost, who won or who lost, and that's it, right? And just move on.
Okay. That's interesting. I never thought of it like that. As far as like you want like really like quick bursts of action, I guess, for
Yeah.
pacing for an audience, um in a kung fu movie. I even thought about it in like from a film standpoint. That's really interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, like overall, then, do you think are you in favor of doing, or I guess just from the tournament organizer perspective, would you do a 2 out of 3, a 3 out of 5 bracket for the entirety of the bracket, or even for Street Fighter 6? Let's just get down to brass tacks here. At Street
I would
Fighter
say
6 at launch, 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 5?
I would say I would start out with 2 out of 3, and because the other thing is like I don't want to establish a standard just yet,
Got it.
right? So like I would do 2 out of 3, and then maybe 3 out of 5 for like top 8 winners, or like the winner losers grand finals kind of thing. And then those are the only 3 out of 5 sets. And that way, we can kind of get a baseline to see how things are going first, right? Like, does this? Do you guys think that this warrants 3 out of 5? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to
Sure.
establish 3 out of 5 out the gate, and then a month down the line, I'm like, you know what, guys, this is taking way too long. Blah blah blah. We gotta switch it back, and then people are gonna be upset about that because I feel like
Yeah,
that would be more negative than for me to go from 2 out of 3 and then be like, you know what, everything's gonna be 3 out of 5s now.
that makes sense. Yeah. So like
Yeah.
it's a lot harder to put it back into the box, or to undo it,
Yeah.
to take it back, than it is to just wait a little bit.
Yeah, kind of wait it out and just be like, you know what, I have been thinking about that, guys. I've been keeping track of run times or whatever. Let people know, what your kind of thought process is really, instead of just jumping the gun right away.
Sure. Do you see the merits of from the player standpoint though? Is that because there's two parallel arguments going on right here. There's the pragmatic one around tournament organizing schedules, and by and large, everyone kind of thinks that 2 out of 3 is going to be better for that. But then from the player standpoint, they're having a kind of debate about whether or not 3 out of 5 actually has an impact on the matches. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends because like I know, especially with like the top players, right? The biggest worry is always, oh, excuse me, am I gonna get random out? All right. And that one extra win, that could be the difference between making the adjustment in time to ultimately win versus, oh man, I didn't know how to deal with this Zangief, mix up or whatever, this
yeah,
vortex that's happening. And it's just like, if I had one more, or a couple more games, like, I'm sure I could have beat this guy. See me after the match. Let's money match or something like that. You know what I mean?
sure, yeah.
But to me, that's typically the main thing that people are looking at.
It trickles all the way down to matchups and character tier lists, even, right? Where like
Mhm.
if I play like a high stakes grappler character, I would think that they would prefer a 2 out of 3. I think there are some players that'd be like, no, I want more time to read my opponent. But like
Yeah.
for a lot of mid level players, it's going to be like, I want to just get that grappler juice going, and then not have to not have
Yeah.
to get figured out midway through the set.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely situations where like, people go up 2-0 and then all of a sudden it's just like, okay, I figured this out now. And then they lose and you're just like, man, if this was first to 2, I would have advanced in the bracket. And just like, well, it's not. So
Do you think that it's a statement about the game, as far as like if it needs to be? I've seen the argument of like, if it's 3 out of 5, then the game's too random in the first place. And do you agree with that kind of assessment, that like if the more sets that the game needs, the more random it is, or is it just kind of whatever?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that in the end, I don't think that really matters. I mean, it's just like I always feel like the better player would typically win, regardless if it's a two or a first to 3, right? And knowing, I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know how every player's mindset is, but I know some people might approach a first to 3 differently than they would a first to 2. Like they might see, if they have like a backup character, for instance, right? You
Sure.
might be like, okay, maybe I like this character better for this matchup. A first to 3 gives me a chance to at least try this for one round and see how it goes, or it buys me a couple games. Whereas a first to 2 wouldn't. Like, I'm not going to take that chance.
Makes sense. Um, so I think there's another opinion that I saw on the internet. Friend of the show, Scott Saber Bender, posted on Twitter in response, saying that all online events should be 3 out of 5, 100% at least. And I think what he's implying there is that because there's no constraint as far as setups go,
Hmm.
and time to use the setups
Yeah.
in an online tournament, that we could do 3 out of 5. What would your opinion be for an online event?
Yeah, for online events, I would agree with that. Like, I don't see a real problem with that because, like I said initially, like with the local events, right? You're bound to like the number of setups you have and your number of attendees. With online tournament, like you don't have that constraint in terms of a lack of setups. You know, a lot of stuff can be going on in the background. You know, as long as somebody's pushing through and making sure matches are getting done, like a lot of stuff can be done in the the losers bracket, and the bracket can be moved forward a lot quicker than it could be done on a local tournament. Because I mean, if you run local tournaments, there's certain things where it's just like, hey, we get to a certain point in the winners bracket where we can advance, and then and the losers bracket is holding things up. Like we need to push through a bunch of these matches real quick. Like you end up asking people to play back to back to back, and like, hey, are you okay to play again? Are you okay to play again? And online, I mean, you should basically kind of expect that.
Okay, that makes sense. And then the last question I had in regards to this topic is the CPT rules for Street Fighter V were that 2 out of 3 until top 8, and then top 8 is 3 out of 5. And because CPT was ingrained in all the majors, like that kind of ended up being the policy for the FGC and for Street Fighter V at least, and the top 8 is 3 out of 5. What would your opinion be on that carrying over to 6?
That I would be okay with, because I mean, if it's just the top 8 to start, I mean, again, like that's kind of like, I guess it's kind of the standard that I'd want to start with to begin with, is kind of top 8s, because I guess I'm just not a huge fan of the winners losers grand finals one, because I feel like if you've gotten to that point already, then it's like, this has been for years. Well, I mean, I don't know, I guess it might change now with the whole top 6 thing, right, at Evo.
Oh,
But yeah, with the top 8, top 8's been traditional. Like this is the chopping block for, did you do well this tournament, right? For a lot of people, it's like, did I make the top 8?
Sure.
So it's just like, I feel like at that point, okay, let's standardize things and let's make everybody play first to threes at that point.
I just realized that Evo is going to be kind of weird if to say they keep the CPT rule set at the same for 6, like, and it's top 8, but then Evo finals day is only for top 6. Like, do you just play the first match of top 8 is 3 out of 5 on day 2? That's going to be really interesting, right? Because like there's going to be a bunch of people crowded around the setup, and then or on the stream station or whatever, and they're going to be like, okay, now this set is 3 out of 5. You just played through top 32 and top 16, 2 out of 3, but this one set is going to be top 3. It's going to be 3 out of 5. That's going to be weird.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how that even goes, or if other tournaments are going to end up trying to establish that as kind of their standard going forward too.
Yeah,
but I don't know. We'll see, because
the other side of it is like our locals, like, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for a local to be only 8 players anyway. In which case, are you running the entire thing 3 out of 5?
Yeah, that's true.
But at that point, it's like, hey, I only have 8 people here. Might as well, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's where you end up like, oh, let's just do the round robins anyway, guys.
Yeah. It's gonna be. I think locals are gonna have their own unique problem to solve there, but majors, and they're gonna take cues from majors. But I feel like if your scene is gonna be under 16, like I would say if your tournament's under 16 entrants, then probably stick to 2 out of 3. So, again, like you've got a really unique perspective here, both as a player and as a tournament organizer. And, I've been listening to a lot of previous episodes lately. A lot of times because like we went on a vacation and I didn't have internet connection on the plane. This is all I had to listen to. And I remember we had T-Dot on, and it was a tournament organizer, like a TO kind of centric episode. And I think I asked the question of T-Dot that I would have liked to have asked of you at the time. And it's that, with Street Fighter 6 coming out, and with Tekken 8 coming out, and with Mortal Kombat, being announced for this year, the fighting game scene is about to enter a new generation, which means new tournament organizers I think are going to pop up. And if you had to give one piece of advice to an aspiring tournament organizer in our local scene, what would you tell them?
Oh man, that's a loaded question.
That's why I said you only have to do one.
I had to do one.
Yeah.
Hmm. I don't know, man. It's like so many things that I'm thinking about because like I know when I started TOing, like the biggest thing for me was just like running a tight ship in terms of like time because that was the
Time
biggest
wins.
reason that we started doing it was because things were running super late. I had to work early in the morning the next day, and you know, it was just one of those things where it's just like there's no reason this should be taking this long. So it's like I don't know. I would say try to establish that as a standard for yourself and for what you're doing because like it's something that you literally have control over in terms of like DQing people and ensuring people are at your venue and doing all that stuff, and it's something that I think in the long run is probably gonna it's just gonna be beneficial for you to kind of just know how to keep things running and keep things running efficiently. Like keep an eye on the bracket, see which matches need to be done to advance things or what's holding it up. Look at the matchups and say, hey, what do I want on stream? And start organizing those people and say, hey, you guys are going to be on stream next, instead of allowing people to run off, right? And just be like, hey, we're so and so, we need them on stream, and like you have your commentators sitting there trying to kill time for you as you get things set up when you know when if you were running a tighter ship you had things running smoother, like those are things that you would minimize and not be a problem for you.
Sure. If do you have any like I guess life hacks for lack of a better phrase? Like how like we had Scott on in the previous episode, and then you
Uh-huh.
basically asked him, you were like, if I wanted to reduce my input lag, like what would be the number one thing I could do? I have the same
Yeah,
question for you. If I wanted to reduce my tournament time, what would be the number one thing I would do?
get some good help. Like
Ah,
it's like you could do things by I could run a tournament by myself with my eyes closed right now if I wanted, but I mean that comes with what 12 years of experience, doing things myself, doing things. But if you've been to a tournament where I'm at, like usually my family's there. And I've had my kids run brackets, and I've had my wife run brackets. And it's just like, if it wasn't them, like I would employ some other help, other people that I know that I could rely on that understand like how the bracket should be run, aren't afraid to yell and find somebody and do those kind of things and get things moving.
okay. It's not a
Yeah, don't
one
be
man
afraid.
show, basically.
Yeah, it's definitely not a one man show. I mean, it can be if you want to, if you want that added stress or whatnot, or if you want all the credit or whatever. But like, you want to run, if you want to run a good show, then like, yeah, get some good help.
I wholeheartedly agree with that one.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with delegating duties to people and just like as long as they're people that you can rely on and then that you trust to do a good job, then uh, you know, I don't think you can get any how would I say that? I don't think you can not get enough help. Because even like, I think about like Armando and running undefeated, right?
Mhm.
Like he basically put Street Fighter in my hands. And it's just like, could he have done it too? I mean, I'm sure he could if he wanted to and run himself ragged, trying to play, trying to TO the Marvel side and, keep people happy on that side. But, anytime I'd ask him questions and like, hey, what do you want me to do about this? He would be like, that's yours. Like you do whatever you think is best. I trust you. And I was just like, okay.
Nice. All right, shifting to the player perspective here, I had a question for you as far as Street Fighter 6 is coming out, and I
Yeah.
think you and I have both taken very differing paths as far as preparing for the game goes. Like I'm going to be playing in the open beta this weekend. I'm really excited to do that. I was curious, are you going to be partaking in open beta?
I would like to. I was planning to. Right now my days off are switching over to because it's going through what is it through this starting Friday this weekend or Saturday?
Yeah, I guess given your hours, it would be, uh, 11:59 on Thursday night until 11:59 on Sunday night.
Oh, that's gonna be rough then. I mean, I could probably sneak in some time in during the daytime because working nights, but I don't know how much time I'd really have. I mean, if anything, if I do get some time, I think I might just try different character because like the limited time that I had before, I basically just played Guile,
Mm,
and
yeah.
so I might just I don't know who else I would play though. Maybe Chun Li because like I have no interest in like Ryu or Luke, and like they're in the demo anyway, so it's like why play them in the beta unless that's who I plan to like main or I really want to like try out some optimized combos or something. So
Yeah, if you have any questions about Chun-Li, I can help. There's
yeah,
honestly, you can play a Fireball DP game. Like you can play her pretty similar to Guile. It's just instead of
yeah.
flash kick, you just do down down kick, and it's pretty legit. It was good enough to get under Jeff's skin at least.
Yeah, but that I mean, that and the other thing, like I don't know if I'm really gonna play right now anyway because like I kind of like sprained my wrist probably like a week or so ago,
I saw
so that's
that you
been
had
kind
a
of
you had a
limit.
wrist brace on yesterday at your birthday thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, I haven't been playing any fighting games at all lately. Just kind of like trying to get that rested up, and like I figure like it's probably better just not play and just wait another 2 weeks and let myself be better by then.
Sure. So 2 weeks passes, and Street Fighter 6 launches. Again, I mentioned that we have had kind of differing ways of preparing for it, and one way is that you've been kind of trying to stay dark on a lot of the promotional material and the media and stuff. Like in the same way that hey, I have a movie that's coming out that I really want to see. I don't want to watch trailers for it, that kind of stuff, right? Um,
Yeah,
so obviously for me, I've been absorbing all of it quite a bit and pouring over it, and so like my first thing's going to be training mode when I get the game. But I was curious about like what are the first things you're going to try when Street Fighter 6 comes out?
me typically like usually what I'll do is I just jump into trials because like I want to
Trials.
see. Yeah, I want to see what the characters because like I mean it's one thing to go into training or yeah training mode and then look through command lists, right, and just kind of be like, okay, this is how I do this move, this is how I do this move.
Sure.
But I'm hoping the trials at least give you some idea of like how to combo things or like situations where that I should be looking for, right? uh so I'll probably jump into that with sim and Honda and kind of just get a feel for like you know what they're trying to do with them or how I should approach the game at a very basic level.
Okay. So say you complete the trials for Sim and Honda, are you going to immediately take them online from there, or are you going to try to do more trials for different characters? Like what happens after that?
Um, I don't know. I'd probably, especially since my son started to play now,
Mhm.
he's planning to play Geef. I might just try to run some games against him just to kind of we both get a kind of feel for like what we should be doing or movement, that kind of stuff. Because again, it's one thing to jump into training mode against AI level 8 or whatever you want to play against and you know try to figure things out that way. But I think it would be beneficial for both of us, like to kind of just jump in and just be like, all right, do you feel like you're in a good enough place, or you have a basic understanding of what the hell you're supposed to do? All right, let's just
Let's
do
throw
this.
down.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
That was actually my next question was because your son is probably going to be playing with you. Like, are you guys going to be sharing a single copy? Do you have one setup? Or are you gonna do you both have your sticks ready to go? Like,
Well, right now we just got the one setup. I was actually thinking because I don't have a PlayStation 4 anymore, but
hmm,
I was actually thinking about possibly getting it for Xbox because I think I have a stick that works for that for the Xbox One. If not, like I don't know. Usually, like the times that I'm sleeping, he's got time to be up and during the daytime and play, so it's not really going to conflict with too much, I think.
sure. It's just a very unique problem to have, I think, for the first time ever, right? That your
Yeah.
kid is going to want to play the game that you're playing, and you guys might be fighting over it at launch.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if it comes down to it, I mean, part of me always kind of has that online and that kind of arcade kind of mentality where I want to play other people and kind of test how I am. But I feel like I don't know. I guess I'm kind of in a different place where uh, the fact that he wants to play this, so it kind of gives me a reason to, I guess, teach him at the same time, and then also, he's gonna develop his own play style too. And like, if it's anything like how I played him in other games, it's kind of like there's gonna be online people that play just like him, and it's like sometimes just going for the big move, or I could see setups from some setups from like a mile away. I was like, oh, I know what you're trying to do, that kind of thing. So it's just like,
Yeah.
part of it's going to be like a learning process for him too, and just like yeah, that might work one time, but no, not anymore.
I That's something interesting too, is that like you were streaming Hearthstone yesterday and I popped in for a little bit. I would totally be down to watch an Excellent Adventures style thing with you and your son playing ranked matches together. I think that would be hilarious and pretty informative, just to see like how you would teach your son essentially.
Yeah. Oh, I never thought about that. I think that would be kind of a cool, because I've been kind of debating the whole idea of even streaming six, because like I don't know, just like even streaming like the older games, it was kind of like it was more for myself, right, than anything else.
Sure.
And you know, it wasn't a matter of like, hey, I'm gonna build an audience, because I'm just like, there's so many people streaming this game. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
worried about growing a crowd or anything like that. Who wants to watch me play kind of thing. But that'd be a that'd be an interesting way to kind of take, go after it.
Yeah. Hell, we could even maybe do like an Absolute Guard podcast of that, I think. Just have G on and be like, G, just play in the background and we'll coach you. We'll watch and stream it and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Now that you bring that up, I think that's gonna be part of my initial things, other than the trials. It's probably just gonna be like versus training mode with him, and kind of really getting him to kind of understand the value of certain normals, because I feel like that's something that's lost on a lot of new players. Is like, you want to hit fierce, right? That's the one that does the most damage, right? But then you don't understand recovery, and you don't understand getting punished for doing stuff like that.
Do you think he's gonna listen to you?
I mean, I don't know. It depends on how much he's gonna want to lose, I guess.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, so you're likely going to be like his first like pillar or mentor as a fighting
Yeah.
game player. And a couple shows ago we had Mike Thompson on, AZ Thrasher, and he kind of, the centerpiece of his biography episode was the three pillars or mentors that he's had over the years,
Mhm.
and like particularly around his fighting game upbringing. And I was wondering if you, like Grandmaster B, both as a player and as a tournament organizer, do you have like pillars or mentors or anybody that like you would kind of attribute a lot of your successes to?
Man, I was like, there weren't people that I played and like trained against like regularly. I mean, I went to tournaments, and like I went to like the casual sessions we'd have, and I'd play whoever was there. Um, but yeah, I don't know. There wasn't really anybody like that for me. Like I probably had more rivals than anything. Like, rivals, demons, or what have you, that people were that would just beat me, and like I would try to learn how to deal with them, right? And I guess a lot of it was more observing than anything. Like I would see how certain people would approach matchups or playing against certain players, and then I would kind of try to, I guess, incorporate that into my game.
Okay. Do you have like an example of somebody that you X copied?
Um, hmm. Well, I'd say that I would say one person that was kind of a mentor in a way. He was more like kind of like a coach type player. Like he was an older guy in our scene. So in Alaska, there's the Kitch Panics. There's three brothers. The younger one's kind of like the prodigy. He's the one that was like my main rival in game. Like did all the option selects and stuff. That's I think I talked about that before. It was like he's the one that I learned about option selects by getting destroyed by his option selects, and I was
Sure.
like, how is this always working, right? And then the other one was like uh Bombi. He joined the scene later, and he picked up Viper right off the bat in four, which was kind of like, oh man, you're gonna play Viper? Like this is a complicated character kind of thing, right? But he developed his own kind of thing. And then they had their older brother Bo, and I would say in a way he became a mentor, because there were times where he would just chime in about a certain thing, and like, why would you do this, or you know uh do this in this situation instead. And like, I mean, I don't know, I can't really think of examples like exactly, but I do like one thing that always was ingrained in my mind was like there was a big uh well, in Alaska, like we didn't really have like huge tournaments, right? So we had a like an anime convention called SenshiCon, and pretty much like everybody would go there, and all the top players that in our scene, like there was somebody that was running gaming, they would run a Street Fighter tournament. And the first SenshiCon that I went to, I made it pretty far, and I could have made top three, and who was standing in my way was Bo. And
Oh,
if I remember right, I think he was playing Fei Long, and I remember losing by because I walked up and I think I tried to Ocho him or something like that. And I just remember losing and like for it was almost like the situation here with like the B League stuff where I had lost and I was just like, man, I was this close to making top three because top three was going to be done in front of like the whole crowd of people. Like they had a stage set up and everything, and all these
nice.
people were going to watch, right? So like that was like what I was looking forward to. And then when I lost, I was just like I held on to that for like a whole year, and I was just like, man, I wanted to make that top three. And so the next year, I think I got put in the losers like super early, and like he wasn't. I don't think he played that year, but I got put in the losers like super early, and I had to make this crazy losers run, and I ended up making it into that top three. And the whole
Nice.
time, it wasn't like I didn't think about the fact that I made it. It was the fact that like I missed out on it last year, but I made it this time. And like I don't know that one loss kind of always stuck with me, back then because of like who it was to, and the fact that like it kind of put things in perspective. Was like, okay, I'm not ready for this moment yet,
Mhm.
in that kind of sense.
It's like that feeling of like you should have been up there, right? But for
Yeah,
one reason or another, you weren't, and trying to figure out why that was. I think. Um,
yeah. Like I made the wrong decision, and like it's one of those things. Like you replay those kind of situations in your head. It's like, man, if I would have done something, if I would have done this differently, like I would have been in a whole different place.
yeah, that recontextualizes your Daigo story a little bit too, because you know, with SenshiCon and with True Grit B League, like you did have a chance the following year. Um,
Yeah,
but for the Daigo thing, like you weren't going to get another shot at it realistically, as far as like getting in the
yeah,
same pool as him, having the opportunity to play him third round, and that would be the round that would be streamed on that giant ass stage. Like lightning had to strike for
yeah.
that to happen again.
Yeah, or I would have had to level up like tremendously in the next year or so.
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh man.
Cool. Any other pillars you can think of? Again, not necessarily mentors, but just like even rivals that push you really far. Anybody you want to give flowers to?
Um, I don't know. In this scene in particular, like I feel like I don't know. There's so many parallels between like how I started in both scenes, because like in Alaska, right? Like I've said this many times. Like I went to that first tournament not knowing anybody other than the random person I met. I saw on like the photo on the website, right? And I befriended him at FedEx because we both worked there, and I recognized him from there. And then we both went for the tournament, and I go to the tournament, I get second place, and I was stoked, right? I was just like, I went to this place, I got second place, whatever.
Yeah.
Like this is great. And the same kind of thing happened here because when I moved here, I went to a Ranbat, the Hasbats, and I got third place. Like I came here, I beat like at the time it was Ernest, it was Isaac, like I don't know where that stream video is now, but like that was a great moment for me, right? Like I was with Mr. SNK, like it was just like, hey, we're going to this Rambat, and I go there and I'm like going through all these people, and he's just like, I'm real proud of myself. I told my friends in Alaska, hey, I'm gonna be on the stream. They're in the stream, like talking me up and stuff, and like that was great. And then like the only people I lost to was Latif and Mr. SNK. And for me, I was just like, I was stoked. I was just like, I just came into the scene. I just, went through a whole bunch of people. And the two people I lost to is basically my mentor in Mr. SNK, and then Latif, who was, the best player here. So I was like, to me, I had nothing to be ashamed about. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
like, I can hold my own over here. And then I think at that time I was able to go to like one more tournament, and then I had to kind of be out of the scene because I had to work. Like my work schedule conflicted horribly with everything, so I just made the decision to not participate. But then when I came back, like I got humbled real quick because all of
Oh,
a sudden, like you know, Ernest and Isaac and everybody else were playing so much better, and like I had been out of the game, and I was just like, man, this is a lot tougher than I remember. That kind of reality reality kicked in for me. So I don't know. It's just like just thinking about it. It's just weird how like so much of that kind of like paralleled each other in terms of like doing really well to start and then kind of being
Yeah.
humbled and put in my place kind of thing, and then having to build myself back up. But
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the shonen anime kind of arc for a lot of players, really. Like,
yeah,
because like I feel like you probably lit a fire in everybody that you played against that day,
yeah,
right? And then
yep,
they probably went home and labbed the matchup out, and tried to be a little bit more
yeah,
meticulous the next time they played you. And then from then on, it's on you to adapt and push yourself further beyond that, right? Once you get figured out,
yeah.
like what do you do with that, right?
Yeah, that, and I'm sure there was that kind of mentality too. Like you almost have when you play somebody that's not like because you guys had Mr. SNK here, right? Who was the best Honda player here. So for
Yeah,
me to come in, they were probably maybe underestimating me and thinking, oh well, he's probably not as good as him,
sure.
right? Maybe came into the match thinking that, and then were surprised by things that I did, or maybe I was just unorthodox and didn't play anything like him, and they were just like, why is
Yeah.
he doing stuff like that this isn't he's not supposed to do this kind of stuff.
Where my
So
mind goes, because like I remember SNK was like the only Honda player for pretty much the entirety of Vanilla, Super, and AE, and
yeah,
even and like I think that's when you started showing around was AE,
yeah,
and like so I fully believe that the people in our scene did not prepare for Honda, and that the only preparation they had was Mr. SNK. And so it's very much like what you said, where you played differently than him. And so it's on them for not knowing the matchup and what the character was capable of, and limiting the scope of what they thought Honda was capable of to what SNK could do.
yeah,
Um, and to set the scene even further, because it was AE, that was still around the era where we just didn't respect online. I think there's maybe like one or two players that really did. And so when we say SNK was the only Honda, like that was literally true, and that the other players
yeah,
wouldn't play online, so they weren't going to get the Honda experience.
yeah,
So I think that in a lot of ways that you ended up growing the scene in that regard, because then everybody started practicing that Honda matchup a little bit more. It probably made Nico a better player in the process, because it
yeah.
probably made the matches a little harder for him too.
Yeah, I mean, I
Cool.
guess in like the AZ scene for sure. Like, yeah, Mr. SNK was a mentor for me. Like, that was long actually before I even got here. In terms of like the Shoryuken, the SRK forums, and finding out who he was, and uh, the tech, and learning about frame traps and safe jumps and stuff like that. Things that I had never thought about, and expanding my game in that sense. So yeah, he's always been a mentor for me in that sense. And then I guess in terms of like the TO side, I'd have to say Abe and
Yeah.
like Steve, like Nitro Frost, just in terms of like uh, always seeing them run stuff, and running things efficiently. Always seem to have the players and the local attendees in mind, and like making sure they're on top of things.
Yeah.
So
Agree.
because I didn't help run things or do anything myself for the first couple of years, just because I didn't really have the capacity or the time to do that. Right,
Yeah.
I pretty much had time to show up, and it's just like, okay, when am I going to be eliminated? And I'm out. Right, and it wasn't until years later, once things were established here, that I was just like, okay, now I can help out, or I can be here for a longer time, and I can help run things or do whatever.
Yeah, you had 3 kids. Like I think you had just had G around the time when we were
Oh, when I
when you were
moved here, yeah, he
playing,
was like
right?
2 years old. Yeah,
I
he
was
was like
two.
two
Okay.
years old when we got here. Yeah, 2, 3.
Yeah, a 2-year-old. Yeah, you're not going to be able to do that and play fighting games competitively and run tournaments at the same time.
Yeah,
Oh man. Okay, that makes sense. So Mr. SNK, Bo, lots of, and then from the tournament organizing side, like we've had Abe on the show, and
yeah,
he's given us his history. Nitro Frost, we don't talk about him very much for a variety of reasons, I guess. Like he's not. We haven't had him on the show yet, and he's always been in the background as far as he wasn't really like a top player per se, or didn't really have that presence like being on the streams, but he was always in the background. He was always like running the brackets and running the events and then promoting the events. I think he like had he did his own like reveal streams and stuff for his Ranbats. I thought that was
Yeah.
always really cool. And yeah, he's by far like the most tenured, I think, fighting game organizer nowadays in our scene.
Yeah.
Because I think like I ran things for like 2 years, and I think that you run one-off tournaments, and you contributed to Undefeated and whatnot, and Steve like has been doing it for like
Yeah, he's been doing
6 or 7 years
Ranbats,
now.
helping whoever, Undefeated, helping Abe with stuff. Like,
Yeah.
he's been all over the place. And then, like I said, I always talk about him like in terms of being Phoenix's biggest supporter and trash talker. Like, you talk about him being in the background, and that's what I think about all the time. Is like when I've played and I hear him in the background, like rooting me on and talking trash back with Abe. Like,
he always had like the top player mentality, which is really interesting too, because he knew that he was too busy to actually play in the tournaments that he was running, but he had the top player mentality, and so he would give people so much shit all the time.
Yeah.
he'd be coach as well as TO, I think. So those are some decent, some pretty decent dudes, pretty strong tournament organizers, and players in their own right. And I hope we have a chance to talk more about Nitro Frost in the future. I literally just saw him yesterday at your birthday party. So maybe we'll get him to come on the show someday.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, very cool. So the next question I had for you, you mentioned earlier, you talked about the OS gentleman from Alaska, right? Who was doing all the Prodigy, who was doing all the OSs,
that's
right?
Banky, aka Banksters, yeah.
Yeah, and you did mention him on the Street Fighter Duel episode, and I happened to be listening to that one recently too. And one of the stories that I told was how Honda reminded me of Mr. SNK helping me beat John Itty, who was a Honda training partner of his. And I kind of rethought about that story a little bit and thought, I kind of put Nico in a weird spot where, because you actually had the revelation on the show that you guys have your own Facebook group called the Bathhouse, right? So it's not just that like you guys were training partners, like you guys were like talking regularly and like trading strats with the character. So Nico basically had to draw that line and be like, do I help a local or do I help my Honda brother? And so I wanted to pose that same question to you. If you were given that situation, and specifically now in 2023, where your loyalties change in an increasingly online world, right? Our concept of regions and local scenes is going to be changing. So the scenario is this: a fellow Arizonan or Alaskan asks you for help against a fellow Honda main in Street Fighter 6. Where do your loyalties lie?
I would say it would be with the Alaskan or the AZ guys. And nothing against, like, I mean, I don't know a lot of those like Honda guys on a personal level, but to me, part of it's like, I don't know, this, like, I feel like you should know the stuff that you'd be dealing with, right? Whereas the AZ or the AK guys might not know the matchups as well as we do. So it's like, I don't feel like there's anything that, other than like my personal, like if I've played you in a match, right? Like if it was you, for example, right? Like I could be like, oh, well, John likes to do this or John likes to do this, right? So other than telling them that, like, I don't really think that there's any much I could really kind of give them in terms of matchup knowledge. Because I was like, like I said, like I feel like you should know that already. So that there's nothing character wise that I could tell you.
Would you give it away? Would you give it away if like if I had a habit where I threw like I throw tech constantly or something? Would you tell the Honda main that I do that?
Yeah, personally, I, in that situation, I wouldn't mind, because that's like, I mean, we have the group and whatnot, and like, I mean, I don't know how involved I'll be in that in 6, but I don't necessarily have loyalties to the players in there per se, or the people in there. So that's kind of a different situation. Like I would tell you the opposite, like, oh, well, in this matchup, Honda, don't let him get away with this. Honda can't do this, punish this or whatever, right? Like I would be okay with telling you guys that.
Okay.
Whereas the other way around, like I probably wouldn't I would just been like, well, you should know most of this stuff.
I get you. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna like so you know we were talking about the pillars earlier, and with Nico in particular, there's something to be said about when people pick the same character. It's often a representation of not just like their own creativity and style, but also like their learning style. And so it doesn't seem to be surprising to me that people group up based on character.
Yeah.
And I forget what my point was with this, but ultimately, yeah, like I guess it's when people learn the same way, I guess, like you kind of build that bond with them, and that's kind of where I wanted to test that loyalty, particularly like in our
Yeah.
online world,
Yeah, yeah. No, it's just like honestly, I thought you were gonna ask me about like between like AK and AZ, and I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
that's a
because I
ugh.
was put in that situation. So back in 2016, because the my Alaska friends, every time they go to Evo, they always want to play like a different scene, like in a first to five, like a 5v5 actually,
Sure.
and so they'll find whatever scene, it's been Utah, SoCal, NorCal, whatever, and they'll try to organize a 5v5. And I remember who else? Oh, San Diego was one, yeah, with Vicious back in the day.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, in 2016, leading up to that, like we had rented because that was the place that was when it was like at the convention center for the first time, right? Like the Las Vegas Convention Center.
Yeah, that was the
And it
first
wasn't
Street
attached
Fighter
to the
Five Evo, right?
yeah, it wasn't attached to like a hotel. So
Yeah.
like we ended up staying at this kind of like it was almost like a two-story kind of like lofty kind of place across the street.
Hmm.
And I basically, they wanted to play the AZ. I think I don't know if it was the AZ guys that wanted to reach out, or I don't know. Either way, like it ended up getting organized, and it was like, hey, you guys can play at our place. Like we got more than enough room. Uh, my wife made some food and stuff, and like we just hung out. And they ended up playing their set, and then like I wasn't gonna be. I made a point to myself that I wasn't gonna be a part of that. Like I wasn't gonna be on either side. And if anybody asked me anything about anybody else, like I wasn't gonna say shit. Like I wasn't gonna choose a side. Like you know, at that point I'd been in Arizona for what 4 years,
Yeah.
and you know, had my Alaska friends. So I was like, at this point I was just like, I want you guys to because to them it's like this is their opportunity to test themselves against another scene. So like I didn't want to give them any kind of like leeway against the AZ guys and say, hey, Yusuf likes to do this or Mocha likes to do this.
Sure.
And same thing with the other way. I didn't I wasn't gonna turn my back on my AK friends and be like, you know what, these guys, this is what they like to do. So all in all, like, I ended up just sitting on the sidelines, just observing and taking pictures and stuff, and just really just kind of enjoying the moment and just being happy to see like, I had basically put these two scenes
Yeah,
together.
you
And then like
bridged the scenes.
yeah,
Yeah.
then yeah, and afterwards, like we were eating adobo and drinking and stuff, and everybody was just having a ball after that. So I was just like, this is awesome. Like this is like the best of both worlds for me right now.
So that was 2016. 7 years later, 7 years in Arizona later,
Yeah.
would you find yourself? Would you do the same thing for Street Fighter 6? There was an AK versus AZ thing. Even if, like
Yeah.
say you were a candidate to be on the team for AZ, would you take it?
For that situation, though, I probably wouldn't do it. Like I don't know, I can't do it, man. Like that's like where I started, and those are like my friends for life. So I'm like, nah, like I couldn't. Even if they were just like, yeah, we need your sim or somebody, I'm like, nah, you'd have to
Yeah.
do without him. Sorry.
I like at your birthday party yesterday, I met somebody named Julian. And he
Yeah.
just moved from Alaska to Arizona like 3 weeks ago or something.
Oh
So,
no. So actually, with Julian, he's I met him in Alaska.
uh-huh.
So this was a basically I don't know the year or two before I left, and I met him there. He had come up from SoCal, and he had moved up there for work, from what I understood, right, work reasons.
Sure.
So I met him through the Alaska Gamers group, the AKG group up there, because he came out and started playing in our tournaments and stuff like that. And then I ended up leaving. That's what basically the time like I ended up moving here.
Hmm.
And then I think a year or so later, he ended up moving back to SoCal. And I think there was a couple Evos in between for sure that like we had ran into each other and like seen each other kind of in passing or hung out or whatever. And then when I was in SoCal, like I think 2 years ago, um, I kind of I remembered that he was there and like we met up for dinner, whatnot. And then he reached out to me earlier this year and was saying, "Hey, you might be moving to Tempe," and I was like, "Oh, really?" So come full circle. Like, yeah, now he's here. So yeah, it was real cool for him to come out and like yeah, I introduced him to like some of the other guys that were there too from our scene. So uh, because that's what he's looking forward to is playing six and getting involved with the scene again. So it's just like it's a good icebreaker to get to know a few people so that if he shows up to a place and somebody's there, like he doesn't feel out of place necessarily. Because I mean I don't know if I'm going to be at anything to start with.
Fair enough. Like you're gonna be like kind of labbing rather than playing in tournaments for a little while, or
Yeah, well at least yeah on the local level because I just don't know what my if I'm going to be I guess if I'm gonna have enough sleep during the day, I guess it's just gonna depend on like how that works out. Like, did I get enough sleep today? Can I go out to a tournament today before work, or will I have time afterwards to go home and take a nap or something before I gotta go to work? Because I imagine like most of the stuff's gonna be done on Saturdays, which it's kind of a bad day for me. But
Sure.
but anyway, you were talking about like how you had met him.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just kind of making the point that you are basically acting as a conduit for people to emigrate to Arizona from Alaska. I think I met Justin as well, who's not a fighting game player, but he told me like he lived in Hawaii and Alaska and then came here.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's my oldest friend. That's my best friend. I've known him since second grade, so he's basically like a brother to me. So, yeah, I think there's not a lot of people I think that know people that long. It's like he jokes around all the time and says like, I've known you longer than some of my family, and I'm like, yeah.
well, speaking of family, I've got one last question on my list here. Which of your children is your favorite? No, I'm
My
kidding.
favorite?
I'm kidding.
I was like, my favorite? Really? You're
No,
gonna
I'm
ask me?
kidding. I'm kidding. But I actually do have like a more fun exercise. So Street Fighter 6 comes out. Obviously, we said G's going to play it, but
Yeah.
Kaya and maybe Mei probably won't. But if you could pick a Street Fighter 6 main for each of your children, which character would they main and why?
Uh, is it raining? It? I think? Anyways,
It's
for
raining salt.
for Kaya, Kaya, my oldest, I would probably say she might play Cammy.
Cammy?
Um, I don't know if there's a particular reason why, because like she's played some fighting games in the past, and
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to Tekken, okay, so it's kind of all over the place. So when it comes to Tekken, she's played King. When it comes to Street Fighter, she likes Ibuki's design, like yeah, I guess just the
She's
whole
cool.
ninja thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when it's come to like, she liked playing KOF for a little bit, and she liked Nakaruru. So I'm kind of like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could be like, I would, s- I don't know. I said Cammy just off the top of my head, but
Female
maybe
character.
Kimberly,
Okay.
maybe Kimberly, but I don't know because in terms of like that or like I don't know, she has this thing with France, so maybe she plays Manon.
Oh, that could work. Yeah, yeah. She was going to go to France a couple of years ago, right? That was like the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, and
Okay.
then COVID kind of destroyed all that. But
Okay.
yeah, maybe Milan because she's French. I don't know.
Okay. How about
uh,
Mei Mei?
she
She's got the wheels now, right?
yeah with Mei Mei. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I want to lean towards Marissa.
Marissa,
Like I don't know. I just want to lean towards that character. Like I think
simple,
she would have
straightforward,
fun.
effective style.
Yeah, high damage. Like yeah, just kind of one of those heavy hitter type players. I feel like she would just want to play somebody that I guess on surface maybe seems a little simplistic in a sense, or just kind of not anything too complicated.
Okay. Um, and then we know G's interested in Geef, but if you had to pick one for him, like it wasn't Geef, what would your guess be?
Um, I definitely have a command grab, that's for sure, because that seems to be I don't know. I guess that's my bloodline is command grabs. It's just like I mean, other than me playing Sim, like my favorite part of Honda, other than him just being silly and flying across the screen, was having a command grab.
He literally
Um,
just won around on the video feed we have with the command grabs. That's funny.
yeah, so I'm like, I'd probably say just another command grab character. So maybe I mean I don't know if I had to choose like based on like who they look or how they look in like in terms of like their move sets and stuff. I could see maybe Marissa or Who's the other one? I thought there was one more I'm thinking of.
Lily has a command grab.
Oh, Lily. No, I think if it was Lily, Manon, and Marissa, I'd probably say I think he would lead towards Marissa. Like, I don't know, he has this thing about just dunking people. Like, that was his thing in Dragon Ball. Like, he wanted to play. Was it Android 16 or
Yeah.
yeah, he was just like, "Hey, Dad, check out this TOD," and like he'd be like doing like the crazy command grab, and I'm just like, "What the hell?"
Do you think the G would follow in your footsteps and play Honda? Would you encourage that?
I don't know if he would necessarily. I mean, encouragement wise, like, nah, it's not really a big deal. Like, I don't have any attachment to the fact that like, oh, you should play him because I play him, kind of thing. Like, if he wants to play him, cool. If not, then it's whatever.
That's a very respectful parental thing there. Let him carve his own path, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of basically just how we've been as parents in a nutshell, really. Because like you hear about like the typical like Asian parents, right, and piano lessons and this, and like I had a cousin that was kind of like going through that whole thing, like did piano lessons and everything. And I'm just like, you got piano lessons? Like, why?
Yeah, dude, just piano or violin.
I mean, yeah, the kids played violin on their own, on their own volition. So it's just
That's
like,
cool.
it wasn't anything that we pressed them on. It was just like we're gonna go to orchestra and we're gonna play violin. Like, okay.
I feel like, so I think we've talked a bit like just in chats on this, but like for future episodes, we should like doing an FGC dad episode would be kind of fun, right? So maybe next time we have a dad on the show, we ask them that same question. What main would your kids be?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I think a lot of people would look towards like their personalities or sense, or like kind of like you look at kind of like their strengths and weaknesses kind of thing. Like, what do you think would gel with them in terms of like, would they play a high execution character? Would they want something more simple, or, you know, uh, I don't know. I guess those kind of things. Like, yeah, like, do you think that they could manage to play a character like this?
I've got an image of like an overbearing Asian parent, but rather than forcing them to be like, hey, play piano, it's no, play Ryu and you're going to learn some fundamentals. You're going to learn Fireball and DPK.
Yeah. That you're going to learn this high execution. Oh, you drop combo? Oh, man.
Yeah. Like the windscreen's got like A, B, and C on the stream, like where it grades you. Why didn't you get all A's?
Yeah. Your technique is C. You just shake your head. Like, oh, man.
Oh, man.
Well, yeah, on the screen right now is this mocha latte match.
Yep, this is the storied mocha latte match. We talked about this one on several episodes, right? This is a big one.
Yeah, this is the one from the B League. This is the one because I was the only one to beat him. Was it first to sevens we were playing?
Yeah,
or first to sevens or first to fives? I think it was first to fives. Yeah.
Oh, I was the only one. I think it was 7. It was 7 win by 2. I think.
Was it 7? Oh, okay.
Maybe. I know this video in particular is 18 minutes long. So
yeah, this is the one where like I was the only one to beat him in a set, and I could just I don't know. It always kind of made me laugh whenever I would like report and then just be like, "You beat who?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, that was me."
Yep. Don't
act so surprised. Come on, man.
Because I played in the same event and I got washed by him. That was a wake up call for me too. I also, like, prior to this match on the stream right now, we also had a True Grit B League with you versus Chiron, and I don't, who won that one? The video cut out before the end there.
Chiron won that one. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. It seemed pretty close from what I saw.
Yeah, me and Chiron have always been kind of evenly matched in tournaments and stuff that we've met up for. Like, I beat him at bar fights when we did a bar fights match, and nice. I think he was coached by Jeff at the time. And then he's beat me in B League, and I think he took me out in the previous, the first qualifier. He was the one that was in my way that took me out and killed my losers run. So yeah, we've had our fair share, but I think we're still pretty evenly matched.
I talked to Chiron yesterday at your birthday party, and he mentioned that he was interested in playing 6. So do you guys think you'll rekindle that rivalry and you'll be up against him regularly, or?
I don't know. We'll see. Because I mean, we basically teamed up when it came to 5. We played. I don't remember playing him much against him. Like, I remember teaming up with him in a team tournament.
Yeah, it was you, Chiron, and Mike. You guys were Team Scumbag. I remember that shit.
No, it was Two scumbags and a gentleman. That's
Oh.
our team name.
Oh yeah. And the question was who was the gentleman, and you couldn't tell who was the gentleman. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh man. That actually,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
that reminds me of
Depends if
another
you play
question I wanted to
Scan.
ask you though. Is that you mentioned Saturdays aren't going to be a good day for you to play, but like, are you still going to play online? Are you going to play like nightly, or like the the night matches that we're going to play, like battle lounge matches with the locals and stuff? Will we see you
Yeah,
there?
I was looking to do that. Yeah, and then, um, I guess the one thing I've been kind of just thinking about is whether I want to do something like on Monday nights, like because it's one of those things. It's like people are just like, well, why is this done on Monday nights, or why is this done on this day? And
Yeah.
it's literally because this is what works for my schedule, and it's like whether it works for you or not, like that's not my problem, and that's kind of how I've always dealt with kind of events. It's just like I'll put, I'm gonna do what works for me ultimately, and if Saturdays don't work for me, probably for the rest of this year, who knows how long, and I might do something on Mondays, maybe online, and try to organize that just so for something for me to do on that side if I want to. But I don't know. I've been thinking about that.
Some of my favorite memories of Street Fighter Five were like because we've been in a group chat together for 8 years now at this point. I think we formed that for Street Fighter Five, if I recall correctly, and
Yeah.
it was just us playing online, like all like it was like 10 of us, all just
Yeah.
playing like nightly, and it was just something you got to hang out with the boys after a hard day at work, And
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we at least get to do that, even if like, and I say that as a player, Benny, like for
Yeah.
player Benny, not necessarily for organizer Benny. That's awesome that it'd be on Monday. Because the other side of that is like for everybody that can't make it on Saturdays, then maybe Monday is the option instead.
Yeah.
And with the online world that we're in now, like Saturdays might not work for a lot of people. And the weeknights
Yeah.
actually might be more viable. When I was running the Spiral series monthly, I had a choice between doing a weekend one or a night, a Thursday night, and I chose the Thursday night because like it's less about committing an entire Saturday to going to a tournament and more being like, hey, I just got off of work, I'm gonna just wind down and play some
Yeah.
games. Might as well enter a tournament while I'm online.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know. We'll see in terms of that. I mean, yeah, I definitely think I'll be around at least for like the player aspect in terms of like playing matches against people. Like we basically like swapping lobbies, right? It's just like how many people are in your lobby. It's like, oh, there's four of us already in here.
Yeah,
Then some of us would break off and like we'd still be talking amongst each other or whatever. But it's just like, hey, join this other lobby instead.
yeah, and like playing in the closed beta in December, like I got to recapture some of that magic at the Battle Hub, where like a lot of us were just hanging out in there, and we're gonna get to do either the Battle Hub or the Battle Lounge system that Six has. This looks really robust, and we won't have to do the lobby jumping thing anymore. We'll be able to like spectate each other's matches and shit. Like it'll be pretty awesome. So I hope we can recapture that magic somehow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't think about that spectating part too, because like now you don't have to stream Discord. Like, hey, my lobby's going on over here.
Yeah, sorry, Street Fighter 5's like again that magical time that I was talking about. It was at launch when Street Fighter 5 was most maligned.
Yeah.
So it's good that hopefully Six sticks the landing, and we will just get at least like a month or two of just really fun like hanging out with the boys playing games.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So I guess I have a whole spiel here. I wanted to kind of close us out on it. That I wanted to wish you a happy birthday, and that the Absolute Guard podcast would not exist without you, Benny. This was your idea, like out of the gates. It was like originally your idea, and when we first started on this journey, like I had all these wild ideas of where I wanted to take the show, like how I wanted to like emulate my favorite podcasts. Like I really liked the Problem with Jon Stewart's podcast, and I was like, let's do that, and let's talk about these really deep issues. And in reality, it's like that stuff isn't particularly we're not natural born storytellers or like showmans or anything, like performers. Really, we're just a bunch of dudes with a podcast and having fun.
Yeah.
And you've kept me grounded in that way. And so like our initial goals of chronicling the history of the fighting game community were really big and lofty and grand. And I think that, through your guidance, like we've landed on something that is much more organic and lasting. And that's the humanizing the fighting game community through the context of history and with the passion for fighting games. It's less so about like, hey, we need to, get all the facts straight and do like a journalistic thing, and more just like, hey, these are the people in our scene. These are the people that they have memories, they have stories that we can learn from, that we can just look back on and laugh at. And that human aspect, I think, is the strong note that it's been great for my mental health, really, because I've gotten to reconnect with a lot of people through this show, and I'm eternally grateful for that. And it's a real honor to be riding alongside you on this journey, man.
Oh, that's awesome to hear, man. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, here's to many more shows. Happy birthday.
Thanks.
Cool. Any closing thoughts before we close out the show here?
No, not really. I was kind of like looking at this Dudley match, and man, I can't believe I hit like a jump in like super combo finish, and I'm like, man, that had to be demoralizing, because like that never happens you never really hit people with like a headbutt super combo. Usually it's like hands confirms, that kind of stuff. So it's just like to kind of be reliving this right now is really great. Like, this is like perfect timing for it to like end on this.
That's the general theme of the show, I think, is that when Benny sees something that he wants, he makes it happen. Whether it's a podcast, it's a match with Mocha Latte, it's a match with Daigo, it's a match with all the other folks that you mentioned in Alaska. So, well, GG's, man, and here's to many more shows. Happy birthday!
Thanks.